Hello. So today I'm gonna be talking about how actions have consequences. I think it's important that we think about the future. I don't think it's useless, you know, but there's a right way and a wrong way of thinking about the future, right? Because thinking about the future as in planning around the future, right? Worrying about the future, that's just anxiety, that's just pressure. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking purely about thinking about how things have consequences. So there's two ways of going about this. One is observing causes and what they condition. So you see, for example, I do this now, and then later you see, oh, because I did that. So that's reflecting on the past, basically. Because I did that, this happened now, right? That's seeing cause and effect in relation to the past. Then we have thinking of the consequences that are to come. So if I do this now, this will happen. And you can only train this by actually paying attention to causes and conditions and letting your mind learn that actions have consequences and what actions have which consequences. Now, the Buddha did already outline many consequences, right? And you can reflect on that too. But I'm saying the main point is you have to let the mind learn deeply that every intentional action one does with the body, speech, or mind is a cause for an effect downstream, right? So you do something now that has an effect later, right? So the future is not completely irrelevant because I do hear this a lot, and I myself was at a point in time sort of thought this, that like past and future, they don't matter. All that matters is what's right now. And yes, what's right now is the only actionable time, but considering consequences of what's done right now is wisdom. Because if you were to do things right now that would lead to your suffering later on, and you're not aware of the consequences, you're gonna suffer later. That's just a fact. So that simply happens because consequences were not considered. And the funny part is, people often do know the consequences of their actions, like smoking, for example, or losing sleep, or eating unhealthy. But because the effect of these causes is not immediate right now, there is no effort put into restraining yourself and not doing said action, right? People tend to wait till there already are consequences before their behavior changes. And this is basically what the Buddha called going with the stream. So the stream, you can imagine it like chasing what's pleasant, avoiding what's unpleasant, and when things are neutral, trying to do something, being agitated by neutrality. That's basically going with the stream. You can observe this easily if you just sit in meditation. Your mind will be chasing pleasant things, avoiding unpleasant things, and if it's boring, if it's neutral, it's gonna want something, it's gonna want stimulation. So that's going with the stream, is basically just compulsively following craving, following aversion, and following restlessness. So that's not really wisdom, that's compulsive action. And that's also partially to blame why society is the way it is today, because the system acts compulsively on short-term incentives, gain, profit, expansion, competition, without fully, deeply considering the consequences of their actions. And that's, you can't even blame the system, because that's how people function. They blindly follow their urges, they blindly avoid things, and they can't stand it if nothing is happening. It feels like it's unproductive. And that's called going with the stream. And Buddhism specifically, Buddha said the Dhamma goes against the stream. And what does that mean? Well, when one has mindfulness established, when mindfulness is established, one can see the stream more clearly. So as it happens, right? I could go into detail of the mechanism, contact, feeling. So it usually goes contact, like let's say your attention moves, maybe you hear something, you think something, you see something, that's contact, and that usually gives us a feeling. It's either pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. And that's where it happens. If the feeling is pleasant, the mind usually inclines towards it. It chases it, it wants to acquire it, it wants to keep it going. If the feeling is unpleasant of the contact, then aversion arises as a consequence of that cause, right? Because blindly going with the stream means pleasant feeling automatically turns into craving, clinging. Unpleasant feeling automatically turns into aversion, conditions it, causes it. And neutral feeling, so there's no feeling pleasant or unpleasant, the mind seeks some sort of stimulation. It cannot rest. That's what restlessness is. And mindfulness basically removes the lag. If you're mindful, you see things as they happen, not you don't catch them, they don't happen just by themselves and you're unaware and it's blindly going with the stream. Mindfulness genuinely allows you to see things as they happen. So it removes any latency of the stream, but that's not yet going against the stream. That's basically just being mindful, being aware of the stream. Then you have investigation, which is basically paying attention to what causes what, right? For example, if you saw clearly that contact, pleasant feeling, craving, clinging happened, that was investigation, because you saw the chain, right? You saw how contact conditions feeling, how feeling conditions perception, how perception conditions mental formation, as in craving, clinging, inclining towards it, and how that narrows consciousness down. Like the mind becomes narrow. You almost get this tunnel vision. Again, with the system, it has this tunnel vision, ignoring consequences, purely fixated on securing that pleasure caused by the pleasant feeling, right? So that's just blindly going with it. And investigation means seeing the chain clearly. So mindfulness allows us to see things as they happen. That gives us a less latency, a more clearer view. So when mindfulness is established, investigation is capable. Then you also need concentration, which is what meditation itself trains, because in order to clearly track these chains of cause and effect in order to see them clearly, one's mind must be capable of attending to something for a long time undisturbed. Not a little bit of the chain, then you get distracted. A little bit of the chain, then a noise distracts you. A little bit of the chain, then another thought distracts you. Basically, that's why these three things are so necessary for clarity. And that's why clarity is not something that's obscured, but something that basically happens when conditions condition it, right? Everything arises due to conditions, so does clarity. So when mindfulness is a condition, when investigation is a condition, when sustained attention, samadhi, is a condition, and for that also energy is required, right? I'm talking about the faculties here. Basically, when the faculties are sufficiently developed and present, right? When the hindrances are not arising or uprooted, but usually the case is going to be not arising, because only for an arahat these things, or non-returner, these things are uprooted. Then clarity is possible, and that allows you to see the whole chain and not just blindly follow the stream. And when the chain is seen, something interesting happens. The mind learns that, first of all, these things are impermanent, right? They come and go. Second of all, because they arise due to conditions, which is contact, pleasant feeling, craving, perception, craving, the whole chain, that means they cannot be owned. They cannot be called me, mine, or myself. So that is the second mark. And think about it. It's not really hard to see dukkha once you get what that means, right? Craving, can you actually satisfy craving? Think about it. You have a craving, right? If you could satisfy it, it wouldn't come back, would it? Right? So you have a craving, and that basically it craves something, some experience, whatever it may be, and you get that, right? And craving goes away for a little bit, but it returns, often even stronger. So was it actually satisfied? See, because things are impermanent, they're not satisfying. You never can get enough of anything. The senses will always want more. It's like a bottomless loop, and that's what it means by dukkha. dissatisfying, unsatisfying, because it's not. You cannot get satisfied by pleasure. You cannot. It's not. You cannot get satisfied. It's impossible. You cannot be permanently satisfied by one pleasant experience. You always need more. So that's what it means. It's not satisfying. You cannot be satisfied by it. And those are the three marks. And that's what seeing clearly means. And specifically for dukkha, you see clearly that dukkha has a cause, craving. Because craving is that feeling of dissatisfaction. And conditions cause things, right? Or causes condition things, however you want to go. But like, tell me honestly, I ask you this. If you crave something, right? And you follow the craving, and then you get gratification from following the craving, right? And then the craving ends for a little bit. Does that condition more craving in the future, or does that satisfy and end the craving? I'll give you a little bit to think about. I'll repeat the question more clearly because it was kind of all over the place. If you follow craving, does that condition more craving, or does that condition less craving? The answer is more craving. And what is craving but wanting something? And that's an unsatisfying feeling. It's pressure. You get what I mean? Like, you can never genuinely satisfy your sensual desire. You cannot. It just keeps on looping. Desire conditions more desire. And now, what is going against the stream? So, funny enough, if desire conditions more desire, then how do you actually eventually stop desire from arising? By not following it. When it arises, because mindfulness is present, because investigation has led to an understanding, because concentration is present, you see the chain light up, you see contact, pleasant feeling. And sometimes it even goes into craving, but you don't follow it. And that's going against the stream. Instead of compulsively following your cravings, aversions, restlessness, you sit with it and you don't continue the chain. And something funny happens when you don't continue the chain. The chain weakens. Next time it ignites, the pull is weaker, right? The reward is weaker. Everything weakens. And if you continue to go against the stream, but that's only possible with understanding, that's why investigation is necessary, eventually it'll stop arising. And that's when it's been uprooted. The causes for its arising have ended. Nirvana, ceased, right? I'm talking specific about one thing, that it applies to all the fetters. That's how the fetters are worked on. You see the mechanism clearly and you don't feed it until it stops arising, because the conditions for its arising have stopped. Because like every time you follow craving, you just add a little drop, like drop by drop is the water pot filled. You add a little cause, and causes add up. So the previous causes have to run out. You can't just say no to craving once and it'll stop forever. There's momentum. That's why past and future do matter to a degree, right? Because your previous actions of following craving blindly have accumulated the causes for craving. And until those are repeatedly not fed when mindfulness is established, because this can only happen when mindfulness is established, when the hindrances are not firing, or when they're seen as what they are, the mechanism is seen. When that practice continuously happens, eventually it'll run out of fuel and just stop arising. And that's cessation, that's nirvana, right? So my point is, notice the stream, be mindful, and just see it for yourself. See the mechanism for yourself, because craving only leads to sufferings. You have to maintain it. You have to, I don't know if you can hear me well due to this, so I'll just wait it out a bit. Okay, so it's really simple. The work is simple in principle, but hard because restraint has to be applied and some craving is genuinely really strong. What helps is understanding. See, people often wait till consequences happen before they make a change. That's what usually changes people. Like, let's say they'll be addicted to a drug. When they no longer can physically take that drug, when the consequences have piled up, the mind then learns. Because how does the mind learn? By knowing consequences. So it can either learn by seeing the mechanism, seeing where it leads, and contemplating consequences and letting that fuel your restraint and letting the craving pass and weaken, or it can learn by waiting till the consequences happen. And because people genuinely are focused more on the immediate moment instead of downstream, the consequences downstream, they wait until the consequences actually happen, till they stop what causes them suffering. But the problem is, when they get there, they'll already have conditioned more causes for suffering that they will not see the consequences. So the loop keeps looping and suffering keeps happening. So the Buddha's path is basically seeing this clearly, seeing how it happens, applying restraint that is not hard to apply once understanding of the consequences is present. Because because the pleasure is impermanent, not ownable, and not satisfying, it doesn't really have anything of value to give you. And if it conditions more of itself, more craving, more consequences, then it has actually a lot that costs you. So the cost is greater than that short moment of gratification. It doesn't matter. Like, for example, I have went on vacations before, had pleasant experiences. Right now, that straight up doesn't matter. It's not happening anymore. I can't get it back. I can't own it. It's you know what I mean? Like, at best, I got a memory that I'm then remembering and missing, which is more dukkha. You know, like, it doesn't give you anything. It gives you a temporary fix at the cost of suffering, renewed craving, the loop continuing, conditioning more heedlessness, mindlessness, you know. So that's why people think just eventually I'll enlighten. No. And I'm not saying I'm not enlightened. I'm saying how the mechanism that gets you there works. You can understand the mechanism before the work is finished. That's completely possible. You can see it happening right now. You can see how the stream happens, right? I could see for myself contact with my own words that then continues what I'm speaking right now. You know, you can see, it just matters. You have to consider the consequences now and stop the chain. And the chain is only stopped by seeing it clearly, investigating it where the mind learns the consequences and how it happens, and then applying restraint to not feed it so it eventually fizzles out due to not feeding. Because the condition for craving is following craving. So obviously if you don't follow it, craving weakens, and if understanding is sufficient enough, craving gets uprooted. The mind inclines away from it. That's called disenchantment. Sorry, disenchantment is seeing the cost clearly. Then dispassion is the mind inclining. Disenchantment is the mind inclining away from it. Okay, sorry. Restart. Disenchantment is the mind inclining away from craving. Dispassion is the mind seeing that even inclining away is dukkha. So the mind just doesn't get moved by craving. And once the mind is dispassionate and stops getting moved, craving has no mechanism by which it can re-establish itself. So all that's left is the past causes finishing themselves. And when that happens, the work is done, nirvana happens. As in, craving stops appearing because it was repeatedly not fed. First due to inclining away, because seeing the cost clearly, and then later because you don't even get moved by it. That's dispassion. That's why the sequence is always see clearly, disenchantment, inclining away from it, dispassion, not inclining towards it or away from it, and then when you're steady in your dispassion, when craving repeatedly doesn't get fed, eventually it burns out, it runs out, it nirvanas, and then you're free from it. And that's how it works. Thanks for watching, see you in another video.